7.6 is law of cosine. So in 7.5, we did law of sine. Now we're going to do law of cosine. In law of cosine, we have a couple situations when law of sine is not useful. So let's talk about those first. Our first one is if we have a side pattern. And what this means is if I give you like one side's 5, one side's 7, and one side is, we can't use law of sines here because I don't have an angle side pair to set up law of sines with. The other one is if I have a side angle side pair. So this is like if I have 5, 7, and I tell you that this is 34 degrees. So we have side, the included angle, and a side. Again, I have an angle, but I don't have a matching side here, so I can't set up law of sines from here. I don't have an angle side pair here, and I don't have one here. So these are the two situations when law of cosines is useful. So the law of cosine for any triangle, so go ahead and draw yourself a triangle and label it A, B, C. And we're still thinking of little a's across from capital A, little b's across from capital B, little c's across from capital C. Go ahead and write down all of these iterations. Note they are all the same. Just in one of them, we have c squared starting and angle c in it. The other one, we have b squared starting, so angle b in it. And the last one, we have a squared starting, so angle a in it. Yes, you do have to memorize this. But really, you just need to memorize one of them and kind of know the pattern. Whatever side is on this side of the equal sign, that's the angle. And then the other two sides are in the other places. Okay, so we have a big note for law of cosine. For law of cosine, we're going to solve for the biggest angle first or last. So we have to make that decision. Do we solve for the biggest angle first or last? Here's our first example. Go ahead and write it down. And let's draw up the picture. I'm going to draw a triangle ABC. Little a is 11. Little a is across from capital A, so that is 11. Little c is 14. Little c is across from angle C, so that side's 14. And then capital B means angle B. Capital's an angle, similar to last time. Lowercase is a side. This is 34 degrees. Notice here we have a side, an angle, and the side. So side angle side means we need to do law of cosine. So that was one of our cases. Side angle side. Law of sines isn't useful. Use law of cosine. Let's think about our notes. Next question. Biggest angle first. What's our biggest angle? Do we know? 14 is bigger than 11, but this side could potentially be bigger. So we don't know. We have to solve for the side first. We could guess, could hypothesize, this is only 34 degrees, so this is probably pretty small. But just to be safe, we're going to solve for side B first. Okay, so if we're solving for side B, what formula do we want to use? Well, we want to use the b squared one. So what does b squared equal? We know that we add the other two letters squared. Then we subtract 2 times these two letters. And then we have cosine of the letter on the other side of the equal sign. Let's go ahead and plug everything in. I have b squared equals a squared. What is a squared? Well, a squared is across from capital A. C squared is across from capital C. Minus 2 times 11 times 14. Cosine 34. Type that into your calculators. And I just typed it straight into mine. 11 squared plus 14 squared minus 2 times 11 times 14 times cosine 34. And I got 61.6. So b squared equals 61.6. Now, in order to undo the squared, we're going to take the square root. And the square root of 61.6 is 7. And we're going to use 3 decimals. Actually, I think I've said 4 decimals until the end, because we're going to have to use this in our problem. So b equals 7.8486. Always write your information back in your picture. So we found side B. Now we have to find angle A and angle C. We could use law of cosine again, or we now have a pair with the B's. I have angle B and side B. So I could do law of sines. So step 1, we found B. All right, step 2, we're going to use law of sines to find, and what's our note? Our note is solve for the biggest angle first or last. This is step 2. So we have to solve, what's the biggest? C. We have to solve for C last. So we're going to find A. So I just wrote you a note. We're going to use law of sines to find A. We're going to do angle C last because it's the biggest. So let's do law of sine. Sine of 34 degrees over 7.8486 equals sine. We're solving for A. What's across from A? 11. Cross multiply, 11 sine 34 degrees equals 7.8486 sine A. Divide by 7.8486. Make sure when you type that sine of 34, you close the parentheses. You get 0.7837. Remember, 4 decimals equals sine A. How do we do this piece? We take the sine inverse of 0.7837, and that equals A. So sine inverse 0.7837. A is 51.6 degrees. I'm going to write that in my picture, 51.6 degrees. And I'm doing one decimal here because we're almost done. We have one quick last step. So for part 3, use triangle sum theorem. To find angle C. 180 minus 34 minus 51.6 equals 94.4 degrees. I'm going to write our final answer over here. We found side B, and I'm going to round that now to 7.8. Remember, we didn't round it to one decimal here. We used 4 because we used it in our math for law of sine. The measure of angle A is 51.6 degrees. The measure of angle C is 94.4 degrees. Yes, law of cosines is a process. So we're going to pause right now and re-go over everything. We noticed that when we drew our triangle, looking at the blue numbers, we had a side angle, side pattern, so that told us to do law of cosines. We thought about our note. What's our biggest angle? We didn't really know. We could have guessed, but we needed to solve for B first. So we found B with, and I'm going to add here, law of cosine. Once we solved for B, we had a pair, so we could use law of sines. So I use law of sines to find A. Why did I find A first? Well, because angle C is last because it's the biggest. Since we didn't do it first, we do it last. Now we're on our last step. We solved, found 51.6 is A. Then we use the triangle sum theorem to find C. Let's do one more example. Here's our next example. I'm going to draw out the triangle, label it A, B, C. A, little a, that's across from capital A is 12. B, little b is across from capital B is 27. Little c, which is across from capital C, is 20. Now let's notice we have side, side, side. So that means we have to use law of cosine. Let's think about our note. What's our biggest angle? Since I have all my sides, B is across from the biggest side, so it's the biggest angle. So it's angle B. So we need to solve for it first or last. And I'm going to choose first. So step 1, find angle B with law of cosine. Now, if I'm finding angle B, we look back at all of our formulas. Finding angle B, I have to use little b squared. So let's write that one out. B squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AC times cosine B. Now let's plug things in. Little b's, this is little b, 27 squared equals, what's little a? Little a is 12. Little c is 20. A is 12. C is 20. Cosine B. We get 729 equals 144 plus 400 minus 480 cosine B. I want us to note this 480 and cosine B are glued together by multiplication. This 480 can only move by division. Do not add these three together. We only add these two together. I like to think about this like if I had 3 equals 4 minus 2x, would you combine those two? No, you would subtract the 4 over, then you would divide by the negative 2. Let's subtract 544. Now we can move this by dividing by negative 480. I get negative 0.4 decimals. All right. How do we get rid of this cosine B? We take the inverse and I get 112.6686 degrees. Let's write that in our picture. Okay. Now I have a pair. Since I have a pair, step 2, use law of sines. So I have a pair. And so here, since I already found my angle B first, I wrote that in C. Let's wipe that out. Okay, so we have a pair here with my B's. Since I found B first, I found the biggest angle first. I can find A or C. I'm going to find A. So I'm going to use my B's and my A's. Sine of 112.6686 over 27 equals sine, I don't have A, over 12. Let's do our law of sines now. Cross multiply. Divide by 27. So then I get 12 sine. Make sure we close that parentheses. Divided by 27 equals 0.4101. I take the sine inverse. And I get, lots of work here. A equals 24.2. I'm going to do one decimal now. Okay, so I found angle B. I found angle A. Last step is to find angle C. Use triangle sum theorem. So what is that? 180 minus A is 24.2. B, I'm going to round 112.7, and I get 43.1 degrees. Whew. Let's go ahead and write our answers in a nice little box. Measure of angle A is 24.2 degrees. Measure of angle B is 112.7 degrees. Measure of angle C is 43.1 degrees. Now remember, we didn't round this in the beginning because we had to use it in our law of sines. And if we have to use it, we use 4 decimals. So we use the same strategy as the first one. Law of cosines, law of sines, triangle sum theorem.